Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Gentlemen, thank you for your testimony. I appreciate the discussion of the supplemental, and I would encourage you to continue to talk about it not as a Ukraine aid package, but as a package that actually builds out our own industrial base to protect our own country. Because that's what it is, as you mentioned, Mr. Secretary. It's actually closer to 60% of that entire bill goes directly into the defense industrial base. When you look at the AUKUS dollars, it actually unlocks about $6 billion to build subs, the weapon system that Xi Jinping is scared to death of. So I think, labeling it as Ukraine aid isn't helpful. It should be called the Fighting Authoritarian Aggression Supplemental or the Defense Industrial Base Enhancement Act. So I would encourage you to continue to talk about it in that regard and the amount it focuses on Israel and Taiwan. So I think that's important, particularly this week with the House. I want to get to the defense budget, which is what you're testifying here. Would you both agree, Mr. Chairman and Mr. Secretary, that we're facing one of the most dangerous times in our history since World War II?
This is one of the most complex times that I've seen, Senator.
General?
In the 39 years I've been wearing a uniform, this has probably been the most complex I've seen.
So I know these are hard questions, but I'm going to ask them. The President has put forward defense inflation-adjusted cuts to the Department of Defense every year. Now, the chairman mentioned, well, this was a House Republicans. This is the Commander-in-Chief's leadership, and he's failing on it. Every year, he puts forward Defense Department cuts during one of the most dangerous periods. Right now, this budget, if it continues in the direction the Biden administration is pushing, will get us below 3% of GDP for our defense. We've only done that 4 times since World War II. Do you think being at 3% of GDP or below 3% of GDP for the Department of Defense meets the moment in terms of the dangers we're seeing right now? Mr. Secretary?
I think, again, operating within the guidelines of the law.
No, but I'm not asking about the law. I'm just saying if we go to below 3% or below, do you think that meets we've been there 4 times. It was mostly in the late 90s when we had the so-called peace dividend. Is 3% of GDP for our Department of Defense what we need during these very dangerous times?
No, we linked our request to our strategy, and again, I think we had to make some tough choices, as I said earlier.
General, I'm sorry to interrupt you, Mr. Secretary. General, in your personal opinion, do you think that below 3% of GDP spending is what we need to meet these dangerous times, which we all agree are dangerous times?
Well, Senator, what I really believe on this is that we got to get a budget on time. For the past 15 years, we've been.
I agree with that.
We've had 5 years in continuing resolutions, and getting budgets on time actually impacts our buying power.
I agree with that. But can you answer my question? 3% of GDP. It's a pretty easy answer. The answer is no, right?
Well, Senator, as a warfighter, I don't.
Here, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to submit this chart for the record. It just shows where we've been 4 times since World War II. We've been at 3% of GDP or below. The answer is no. I think we all know that. This committee knows that. It's important. I respect both of you very much. You have a lot of experience. But it's important to come to before this committee and tell us what you believe. None of you believe going below 3% of GDP is good for the Department of Defense. I know that. I know it's hard. The president clearly thinks it is good for the Department of Defense. He cuts the budget every year. It's got to make your job really tough. Let me go to an area that you understand very well, both of you, and that's deterrence with regard to Iran. Tom Friedman, the New York Times columnist, recently observed that fighting through Tehran's proxies, Hamas in Gaza, the Houthis in Yemen, Hezbollah in Lebanon, Syria, Shia militias in Iraq, Iran is reaping all the benefits in paying virtually no cost of the work of its proxies. I asked General Kurilla if he agreed with that. He said yes. I think they're not paying the cost. That's your CENTCOM commander with regard to Iran. Vice Admiral Brad Cooper mentioned on 60 Minutes that the Houthis are actually being supplied by the Iranians, advising by the Iranians, trained by the Iranians, and very importantly, They are receiving targeting information on American warships in the Red Sea. So the Iranians are providing the Houthis targeting intel to shoot and sink the USS Carney and USS Eisenhower. Both of you are, I think, very clear-eyed on the threat that Iran poses. You've seen them killing our troops over the years. General, you've had an up-close, I'm sorry, Mr. Secretary, you've seen that very up close with the EFPs in Iraq. Why are we not sinking Iranian warships, intel ships, that are providing targeting intel to kill Marines and sailors from Alaska or North Dakota? I mean, I find this outrageous. Why are we not doing that? Why are we not telling the Iranians, overtly or covertly, next time you send intel to target an American warship through the Houthis, we will sink your ships? Why aren't we doing that? That's so basic to me. Mr. Secretary, you've been very strong against Iran your whole career.
And I maintain the point that Iran needs to be held accountable for what it's continues to do.
They're providing intel to kill American sailors in the Red Sea. Why don't we sink their ships?
Well, attacking Iran is a different issue, and I think
They're attacking us.
their proxies are attacking.
No, they're providing intel to kill Americans. General, your advice on this, in your personal opinion?
As the Secretary said, we will continue to hold Iran accountable for much of this activity. And I can talk to you more in a classified session of some of the options that we are working through should one of our ships get attacked.
This is not an unreasonable position that I'm proposing. Here's the problem, and I've talked to the CNO of the Navy. There was this barrage against the USS Carney, 28 missiles and drones recently from the Houthis. If one of those slipped through and sunk that ship, the president would have pressure to go to war with Iran. My view is we should just tell them right now, enough. Operation Praying Mantis, I know you're both familiar with that. That was a very successful operation. We sank Iranian warships when they were mining the Persian Gulf. So I'd like to talk to you more about this in the classified setting, but I don't think it's even a difficult decision. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.